Oh,
We on
hi.
Instagram. We on Instagram. We on Instagram.
You know what's funny about we should start a channel called When Two Old Guys Figure It Out. That'd be a great
Technology's
channel.
cool. That was perfect for this, though. I love that this still works. Woohoo! Woo! Now it's not
We
working.
should
All right, whatever.
we should totally like when two old guys figure it
Two
out.
old guys use the internet. Welcome to season 3, episode 2 of Lawfully Chaotic, both here on Twitch, which is what I'm looking at you on, and here on Instagram, which I am looking at over here. So yes, we are live on Instagram. Figured it out. We should time you both in standard Microsoft. Please no. Colin, thanks for joining us tonight. Colin's one of my players in our.
It's standard Microsoft tasks. That's genius. That is absolutely genius.
Yeah, Clippy can help me out, figure out social media. Anyway, welcome, Colin. Thanks for joining us. You win tonight, and since you're in Chicago, I can actually drive a free T-shirt over to you. Lawfully Chaotic shirt. Colin's one of my players from our Wednesday night group.
Nice.
We played last night, and
how'd that go?
It's a perfect segue because, well, let me do the intro first, and then we'll segue into that. So,
that's right. We're supposed to
very
be better
fluid
at this now.
today. Yeah. Did my
Supposed to
chiropractor
be
appointment.
way better at this now.
Loosen me all up. My spine is like jelly.
It's like jelly.
It's like jelly. Jason, how are you?
Oh, living the dream, pondering the scheme, wondering if, life is going to happen, which I suspect it will.
Life will always
on a regular
happen.
basis. I'm in that phase of emotion and challenge where, how should I put this? It's hard when a lot of campaigns wrap up for both emotional and scheduling reasons.
Mm-hmm.
I actually had a campaign just kind of accidentally finish because they finished the arc and they felt like it was a perfect time to stop the campaign with the way the arc finished out. But we then spent, the following Tuesday doing our epilogues and building characters for campaign 3. So this group that I've played with for almost 4 years now are, they're going to play with me again for another 2 years.
Okay, this is almost as if we planned this, but we absolutely
didn't. Yeah, we did not.
Because part of the new format is neither of us tell each other what we want to talk about tonight.
I like how you explain the format as if people give a fuck. It's like, listen, old people, if you don't start talking about D&D, I'm going to delete your account.
You can download the bylaws.
I'm going to delete your account of 12 people. I need structure, damn it.
It's just chaos. But
no. So now I'm in that gray area where I'm building 3 new tables, knowing that between now and mid-March, 3 campaigns are going to wrap up.
Okay.
So my current new campaign I'm writing for is called The Rising Tide. It takes place in Marquette. It parallels with Hell's Bells so that people can still enjoy, that genre of the release of Marquette and not feel like it's going to get spoiled in any way. I also will be writing a couple new campaigns, and I've even dabbled with the idea of going back to Waterdeep. I think I want to do something with 10 towns because I think, Neverwinter in 10 towns can be a lot of fun. But I'm also toying with the idea of the Anarok Desert. I mean, that's a real fun environment. The Red Wizards of Thay are, really kind of they're an old generational lore, but I really kind of enjoy, the lore itself. So, so right now I'm crazy writing, getting over the emotion of 2-year campaigns coming to an end, people's real lives kicking in. So I've had to say goodbye to a couple people that just can't play right now because of, real life stuff. Which is always, a little bit rough.
I'm laughing because this is all like,
Well, what do you got going on?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, Jason. So So first of all, so Colin, I'm glad you're here tonight because we just had this discussion last night. In fact, probably we should have had you just on as a guest. So we just wrapped up, and I'd love your input on this, Colin, as we go. So feel free to, pipe up as much as you want. We just finished a 3.5-year campaign of Tyranny of Dragons. And I learned a few things running this with this group. Awesome
Old
group.
people can't learn.
Old people can't learn. I realized it was made apparent to me. It was made apparent to me, even though I chose not to learn anything new. Is that acceptable? No, but the group was awesome. We've all been together for the entire 3.5 years. We had a couple people drop out. One person very early, one person very late. We tried bringing one new person in, and it did not work out to the point that we wrote him out of the campaign and killed his character in a very violent way.
Ooh, violence.
But overall, it was a great campaign to play with these guys with. What I learned is I probably will never run Tyranny of Dragons again, because for me, and I think for these guys, Colin, back me up on this or disprove what I'm saying here, if that be the case. I think it started to drag at a certain point. Also, again, I'm very much a stickler for consistency and continuity. And if somebody can't play for a week, obviously you deal with it. But if somebody, is not able to play for months on end, or a month or 2 months, I've got to find a way to write them out so that it makes sense for the story. And we did that for many months until it got to the point where it just, and I'm not blaming everybody, because like you said, life happens. I mean, it's, we're playing a game here, right? Life happens. But it does make it very difficult to maintain that continuity. So that kind of went out the window. And like I said, I think it just seemed, strictly on the material, on the content, it seemed to drag a little bit for me. So I will not probably run Tyranny of Dragons again. Playing freely in the campaign is, cast blame freely. My players were fucking horrible. I hated them. Oh wait, are they here? Are they listening?
All your players are here. They hate you. And
but playing with these guys was awesome. And in fact, the conversation last night. So we wrapped up. There was a little bit of epilogue, but there was a bit of emotion, I got to say, even though it was not my favorite campaign or module to run from a published standpoint. It was still like we did, I met these guys through Adams, through D&D Club, which is now RPG Club, originally. Right. And we've been at it since day one. And now, I've got 6 new friends, which we know is part of this whole thing that we do, which is awesome. So we immediately talked about, what do we want to do next? I mean, all the guys were like, we want to keep playing.
So to be clear, you're saying that this game promotes friendship?
If you do it right, and there's definitely a way to do it right. If you do it wrong, then you're an idiot and you will have no friends. It's awesome. So we immediately were like, okay, what are we going to do next? What are we going to play? Blah, blah, blah. And there was a bunch of things that we discussed. And so all of this basically rolls up into, have you ever heard of the DNDCU?
No, I have not.
Really?
What is this DNDCU thing that you are about to?
I'm glad you asked.
No, I haven't. So I'm not a acronym guy when it comes to certain things, and I'm in the future I'm going to talk about Matt Koval's MDDCU or whatever he calls it, but no, I'm not familiar with this.
Okay, so let me tell you what this is. This is something that I have coined.
Interesting. You have
TM
coins.
copyright
I'm
registered trademark.
excited. Yeah, I'm excited that
Um,
you have coins.
Well, in discussing this last night with the guys and figuring out what do we want to do next, who can play, how do we make schedules work? We want to pull in a couple new players so that we have more than 5 or 6 core players in case somebody can't play. We still have a full table. The fact that it kind of dragged, Tyranny dragged a little bit, and it got me thinking. And this is stuff that you and I have. It's really nothing new. I'm just repackaging it because you and I have talked about this before. And basically what it is the anthology thought. And I started thinking about how it kind of correlates to Marvel's MCU, okay, since the advent of the first Iron Man movie and now streaming. And, the lines between movies and TV shows have been completely blurred, which is a good thing.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in fact, I kind of look forward more to the TV shows because you can get much deeper into the story than the movies. But the fact is, you can take any one of the movies, well, for the most part, not anyone, but some are very intimately tied into the overarching story arc. But you can take, you can take most of the movies, you can take the TV shows, and you can take them at face value. Okay, I'll just add a thin air. She-Hulk. That was fun. It was entertaining, right? Everything that Marvel Studios does or Disney does has an impact on that greater story arc. The whole multiverse thing, all that shit. Okay.
Right.
So it really just solidified for me the idea of not doing another published campaign that takes you from level 1 to 20. Okay.
Right.
Doing bits and pieces, whether it be a piece of a published book or a little bit of homebrew or this or that. Yeah, they may not even do. That's a good point. I heard they may not even do season 2, which is kind of disappointing because I was a little cold on it first few episodes, and then I realized, okay, I see what they're doing. This is really kind of fun. So,
yeah, anyway. Unfortunately, there's a syndrome that is being suffered by media. If you don't, they call it the Stranger Things syndrome. If you don't get it, if you're not popular that first season, you're out.
Oh, well.
Max has been doing it. A lot of them have been doing it lately where,
I always thought it was you give it 2
seasons
and then after 2 you kill it. But is it now down to it's either...
I think in the nerd fandom, it's getting a lot harder for, shows to really kind of they suffer a bit from the corporate mentality of profitability too.
Of course.
And if they don't, fit that formula, it's a problem.
Right. Understandable. So maybe She-Hulk was a bad example, but you know where I'm getting at. Yeah. So it got me thinking, why not a DNDCU, Dungeons and Dragons campaign universe or creative universe rather than cinematic universe, although it could be cinematic universe too. Have it, have what you will, or pursuant to to other games, because we actually also talked about maybe trying Pathfinder or looking at other systems. It could be GCU, gaming creative universe or something like that. But my idea, this just solidified what you and I have been talking about this anthology approach to running a campaign, okay?
I love it. That stupid Mac shit. You deserve it. That's what you get. Anyway. That's what you get for using outdated technology.
Don't get me started. We're gonna have to bring up the rant cam if you start ripping on it. Anyway, well, actually, you can rip on Apple all you want. Just don't rip on the actual Mac.
Don't, my baby's sensitive.
And take my baby. Anyway, no, but it just really solidified in my head. And like I said, Colin, chime in, but because we talked about this last night, not the DNDCU. I kind of came up with that today as I was pondering it. But of running a game campaign, D&D campaign, or a game campaign like TV episodes instead of a movie.
Right.
Okay, Tyranny of Dragons was a movie. It was very long and very drawn out. And if for some reason it takes a turn and you're not enamored of it, you got to sit through the rest of the movie, right? Who walks out of a movie unless it's absolute complete trash? It's a rare thing.
Right.
You just sit there and take it, and then you're like, yeah, I wasted $20 at the theater or whatever. But if you do it as a TV
do people
show,
still go to the theaters?
occasionally.
Is that a thing?
Yeah.
I was just curious if back in my day in the $20 arcade theaters,
only porn theaters.
yeah.
But anyway, just running it with a group of, say, 8 people, so if 5 or even 4 can make it, you've got at least a full table to play, and everything ties into maybe an overarching story arc,
right?
But it doesn't have to be a continual thing. Okay, like players 1 and 2 can't play this week. Okay, great. We'll go to these other 4 people that are part of the same story, but doing a completely different mission and could be looked at as completely separate. But at the end of the day, things will wrap up and it may inform these other stories.
Right.
So it's also dependent.
That is also dependent on the players. Obviously, some of the group needed a battle every session, or they were bound to PvP one of the group.
Yeah. Right. So it just, again, this is kind of nothing new other than the moniker that I've attached to it and the epiphany that I had.
And
I really think I want to approach it that way. And I think it's going to be a lot more fun to pull pieces from here and homebrew. And it could even be a one shot. It could be 6 months. It could be this and that. It could be different groups running at the same time. It will make it it'll facilitate. So I'll just wrap up and then I want to get your opinion on this. It'll facilitate much easier continuity, in my opinion, in terms of writing people in and out. It will keep things from getting stale.
Right.
With a 3-year-long campaign. And I think it will also facilitate really interesting creative avenues. To this day, still, these guys here, and Colin, I don't know if this was before you joined or after. I can't remember. I apologize. But to this day, a side quest that these guys did was my best story arc that led to the core of my entire homebrew campaign.
Right. That does surprise me.
Yeah. So that's my DNDCU, Dungeons and Dragons Creative Universe, is basically treat it like it is, treat it like a playground more than.
I've always loved that idea because I played with that idea one time. When COVID hit, I took all of my Forgotten Realms campaign that were all interlinked, right? So originally they were all supposed to meet in one big setting.
I gotta break in with a Blade Runner 2049. Interlinked, spells, interlinked. Sorry.
So initially, I had built a universe of campaigns that were all tied together in a single theme. And the goal was to have a party at a brewery, and everybody was all 20 players were going to come in, 25 players were going to come in.
Fucking awesome.
And then they were all going to have their final boss fight together, but each group was going to be at their own brewer's table.
Okay.
And I would do an old school style of campaign refereeing where I'd go and run each table individually throughout the night. And then it would culminate in this, in that final kind of multi-universe setting. But unfortunately, COVID kicked in and things changed. I was never able to get it together, but it all moved to online. And although I never had the facilities online at the time in my toolbox to do it, they all wrapped up their campaigns. I just didn't get to do it the way I envisioned it, which then led me to the idea of the anthology that we've talked about, because Love, Death, Robots, right, is a great example of a solid method of anthology, in my opinion.
X-Files did it very well too.
Yeah, X-Files did it pretty good too. And now I'm toying with the idea of actually writing an anthological kind of approach to a table. I just not too sure.
I mean, you could even split it between different DMs if you agree that the world is the same.
That
idea that you just stated of the different tables all together IRL that's fantastic. I absolutely love that.
So I'm really late to the game on this, but I finally watched season 1 of True Crime on Max for the first time, and now I'm beyond inspired for the anthology theme because I watched season 1, started to watch season 2, did a little bit of season 3, and then I watched season 1's just amazing so far. Herd of Punishment, where players had to make another character and their main characters were pitted.
That's awesome.
Against a new character in a fighting pit. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
What's up, 3 Miles?
Yeah, dude, Colin beat you this week. 3 Miles.
So I watched episode 1 of season 4, the one with Jodie Foster.
Okay.
And I feel like they've kind of gone back to their roots of season 1. Season 1 of True Crime had a really dark Cthulhu-esque vibe on top of the gritty vibe.
And no shit. I've never watched the show.
And season 4 looks like it's going the same way. So I've been looking to get inspired for some Candela Obscura games that I'm running Monday night here in the studio as Pike's Promise season 2 came to an end. But yeah, definitely watch season 1 of True Crime. Right, it's very inspirational. It's good writing. It's anthology. The anthology method is pretty solid. So my subject matter that I had on the tip of my tongue coming into tonight's session.
Okay. Yes.
So Ken Briggs. Do we know who Ken Briggs is?
We don't.
Ken Briggs recently tweeted about almost 2 weeks ago about the end of the golden age of TTRPG Academy. And just for clarification, spoilers, I will never call it X.
The end of the end of the golden age of TTRPG Academy?
No, just games. You
said Academy.
Oh, sorry, that's Force of Habit. No, he tweeted out.
Is closing shop and will no longer.
By the way, I'm never gonna fucking call it X because honestly, that's what I call my ex-wives. And
wives.
X is what you, and X is what you call porn.
No, so, X is dumb. It's Twitter.
I call it X. I call it tweet. So he had tweeted, and it got some interest, but it does bring up some good arguments. And sorry, it's Ben Briggs, not Ken Briggs.
Ben Briggs. Okay.
Ben Riggs.
Ben Riggs.
Yeah. Ben Riggs, which is does not roll off the tongue very well. He is a generational writer for D&D. He goes back to 3rd edition, and he calls 3rd edition the best edition, which there's arguments for and against. But then he went on this whole, week-long event of basically stating that the golden age of TTRPGs have come to an end. And, he put in, Bob the World Builder did a pretty good breakdown of his tweet talking about the argument for and against. Most of what Ben was saying is not very very substantiated. And I think once again, the influencer universe is suffering from the lack of WotC making more mistakes. There's not really anything to talk about when they're not making mistakes, So, I think sometimes topics have to be made due to lack of substance.
Mm-hmm.
If anything,
it's the sensationalism. It happens every day in media.
Yeah, and if anything, it's the polar opposite, really. I mean, with the advent of AI, the progression of remote play, people getting more and more comfortable with remote play. I think every transitional period of anything, you have people that call it the death of it versus other people calling it the birth of something, and it's interesting because, you know, the diversity and resilience argument of the game has some merit to it. Has a little bit of merit. The resilience and diversity are eroding because of the lack of game store support that WotC is promoting by bringing in the publishing themselves.
Yeah, and I also think it's just because of their leadership and the decisions that they're making.
That's irrelevant to the overall environment, to be honest with you. Once a fuckhead, always a fuckhead. It doesn't make any difference to me. But you can actually see, I mean, there was I had a lot of fun researching this topic because I went and I actively tried to find games that I've never heard of. And I'm going to give you 8 games. Yeah, getting there, almost.
See, I told you owe me a rant cam graphic.
I know, I'll get it.
You did for me.
There's a game out there called Masks, a game where players decide if their hero is a savior or a power-hungry messiah, and it's built in a sandbox. There's another one called the Balik Bayan Returning Home. This is a Filipino TTRPG, right? There's that diversity already being challenged. There's another one called Brindlewood Bay. It's a murder mystery game where players are elderly members of a local mystery book club turned detectives. It's genius.
It's
absolutely fucking genius.
It's fucking awesome.
There's the Ruatama, and I apologize if I'm not pronouncing this correctly. There's the Ruatama Natural Fantasy Roleplay, combining elements of Studio Gilby and Oregon Trail, which everybody loves.
Wow.
Oregon Trail.
That's a fucking blast from the past.
There's another one called Magical Girls and Mecha. And it's MECHA, a diceless game about magical girls and giant robots tailored for play via Discord only. So it's like it's a TTRPG designed for your up and coming Discord.
I only want to play that if everything is visually translated to anime and everything is also dubbed.
No, I can't watch dubbed. It drives me nuts. I have to watch. I have to read. I'm okay with subtitles because the natural language is just so much better.
No,
there's another one called Heart, The City Beneath, a story-forward adventure game set in chaotic, nightmarish underworld. There's another game called A Cool and Lonely Courage, set in World War II. This game puts players in the roles of women and the SOE, using cards to determine the focus of each scene. So to your point, the idea of cinematic scene anthology, right? And then Magical Kitties Save the Day, a whimsical game where players are kittens solving problems in a world filled with fantastical elements, right? So this was just a short list.
None of these,
right? And I did that to myself on purpose. I was really floored by what I've been learning about the Balik Bayan Returning Home, which is a Filipino TTRPG. And it was that lack of diversity point and the erosion of, the idea that there's not enough resilience. There's not enough counter gaming culture out there to challenge. And I felt that was unsubstantiated for the most part.
So if I may, if you're mid thought, I don't want to interrupt, but
no, I'm a little mid thought, but go ahead.
Okay. All I'll say is, I mean, you know me pretty well since we've met each other, and you know that I am, I tend to be resistant to change. One of those that is resistant to change.
I'm super resistant to change. I'm just saying.
But I gotta say, I agree with you. I think that statement is completely off base. I guess it depends on what your definition of the golden age is. The golden age is usually a very retro term, and it's like, it's like, the Rat Pack and Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr. and Dean Martin. And
it does bring up a good point. Is golden age itself outdated?
Well, that's where I'm getting at. Is like, if you define it that way, sure, the golden age is over because it's it's over. You know, if things
you know what? 3 Miles brings down
if you're
really quick. Hold on a sec, really quick. 3 Miles brings up a good point. What is Zombicide considered?
I still consider that a board game.
Me too. It has a lot of TTRPG elements because of the way they cinematically tie things together.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, back to your point about the idea of the anthology and the cinematic connection, the fact that, but you know, there's an RPG that I'm learning how to play right now called The Walking Dead.
Right.
It you know, it could be Zombicide if you wanted to, but there's so much character flavor and theatrics in the characters within that board game. I mean, it's a good point. I mean, Dark Tower, you have Dark Tower. I mean,
yes, and the latest, if I'm not mistaken, I think the latest expansion of Dark Tower, you can upgrade your character and it carries over. I think Dice Throne does that. Dice Throne, which is far from role playing. It is Magic the Gathering meets Yahtzee meets I'll just leave it at those two because I forgot the third one that I used to. But they've also done an aspect of that game where you upgrade your characters and those stay when you advance the game, and it's more of like a dungeon crawl. So again, I think I think his statement is completely off base, because if you define Golden Age one way, yeah, I would agree. But if you define Golden Age as truly the hobby kind of transitioning and becoming way more than it used to be, I mean, it sounds to me like he's saying, role-playing games are never going to be what they were, and yada, yada. I couldn't agree.
Well, it brings me to what I kind of got out of the whole reading and following up with this idea of the Golden Age. I think Golden Age is a historical label designed to categorize events that have both a beginning and an end. The one thing you could say about D&D and TTRPGs in general, they've never really experienced a true end. They're generational and they've been going on for a long time, and there's not really a true end to it. So, you know, like anything that's popular, that peaks and valleys and peaks and valleys, you know, he focused heavily on Stranger Things as a reference because of it being such a centermost point of the show, as a backdrop to the show, a minor backdrop, really, not a major backdrop by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, even the evolution of the Vecna label was never intended to be a major backdrop or coined expression. It just kind of came out of it organically.
Which belies the fact that that TTRPGs are losing popularity.
Well, and he made it sound like Stranger Things was a singular event. And I'm like, well, no. You go all the way back to E.T., the opening scene of one of the most popular movies in the world at the time, were a bunch of kids playing D&D. So, you know, it's like, for me, the thing that's changed for TTRPGs are what players are now wanting out of their experience. And whether it's, you know, established TTRPGs or newer ones, they're all looking for immersion. And that's where the influencer community really is now setting that tone. More and more and more players want immersion in whatever they're playing because of their interaction with the social media world and how they're consuming the way games are played. They don't feel threatened by the immersion anymore. They feel emboldened by immersion. They like the fact that it's okay to fall in love with your character, regardless of the system that you're playing. And this idea, cinematic universe, the MCU, a decade of MCU, has the immersion factor of that world is really out there now. And I think as players want that immersion constantly, not because they demand it, but because they recognize its value. Right. It then challenges a lot of the GMs, referees, and narratives. Goes back to what I switched calling them non-player characters. I coined the term narrative player characters.
Yep.
Narrative player characters are really what my NPCs are. They're
Yeah.
not these non-player characters. They play. They're in the world.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing too is, I'll wrap it up by saying the market trends don't match his statement.
So
the market trends.
Who is Ben Riggs? What's his background? I'm not familiar with him.
Go look him up. He did a lot of writing for 3rd edition D&D. So he did a lot of modules, content. He's a content creator, both print and I imagine he's digital now. He's known to that creative space.
Okay.
And don't get me wrong. I mean, anything stated on Twitter is designed to do this, to get people talking about things.
Of course, yeah.
That's.
Well, I want to fight him. I want to fight him. I'm definitely going to have a fist fight, no doubt.
But I think, there's, the trends. If you look at the markets, who the F is Kaiser Soze? If you look at the markets, you look at the numbers. With online play, it's getting easier to find groups. The content, third-party content, is becoming more important than core content through its evolution.
Yeah.
The advent of AI tools, I'm sorry, that has completely changed my ability to create. Absolutely changed everything about my ability to create.
No, you know what? You and I talked about this the other day when we were having one of our meetings, and I have a love-hate with AI, and I'm not gonna go into it, deep, but I will just say that I am very hateful of the potential implications. But that aside, it is fucking amazing. I've been using it too. So,
well, and I think it really. Not to belabor AI, but it also, I think that the challenge you have wanting to be an effective GM is you don't want to break your bank, right? You don't want to, you need to be able to want to entertain people and enjoy entertaining people, but you don't necessarily want it to be so expensive that you can't do it. Yeah. And these tools that are out there now, I mean, you saw those videos that I was sending to you. It's not cheap, but it's not expensive by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah.
But the players really enjoyed the recap using the video tool because it really helped them understand what's going on in simpler terms.
It's a fucking family show, you sick fuck. I agree with you 100%. Again, I think it depends on your definition of golden age. The traditional definition, sure, you could say it's over, but if you look at the golden age as when something really shines.
Well, I mean, the golden age of Las Vegas, the golden age of this, the golden age of that.
It's generally like a retro, nostalgic thing, but I mean, I've said this a million times. I'll say it again. I honestly think COVID was the best thing that ever happened to role-playing.
Yes and no. Yeah, I'd agree with that. There's a yes and no factor. I think it was super bad for the stores.
It's just
no. Yes. You're completely inhuman.
No,
it was
Damn it! You figured me out.
It's the stores suffered. There's no doubt that the stores suffered greatly.
I'm speaking in a very overarching, in my opinion, it forced people, if we want to keep doing this, we got to figure out a whole new way to do it. And it showed that it could be done. And it has opened up a completely different aspect of the game. So I think he could not be more wrong in terms of the golden age. I agree with you.
Yeah, I don't know. It was an interesting read. I definitely recommend that if you're out in the space, go and do some research of your own into what those statements are, the origin of the statement, and kind of just play around with the counterpoints that go back and forth. But yeah, no, it was fun.
Interesting. It's very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So I am leaning towards taking a look at the MCDM RPG. which is the Matt Colville system that just so we know, I want to put this out there. So his project on BackerKit. So he did his on BackerKit. He didn't use any of the real mainstream ones.
Mm-hmm.
And his project, which I've never really gotten into BackerKit, so I'm gonna take a look at that as well. But he raised $4.6 million.
Wow.
Of the $800,000 goal, he raised
fucking
4.6, right? So, and there's over 30,000 backers for it.
That speaks volumes.
Yeah,
on many levels.
Absolutely. Yeah. It speaks to his fame, and his involvement in the a lot of the original D&D universe content. It also speaks a lot to the severe amount of falling out with WotC, and the corporate overlord structure that they kind of forced down our throats.
Something new.
And it's you have Daggerheart, you've got MCDM Productions coming out with the MCDM RPG. You've got all those other games that I mentioned. You've got all these publishing houses buying up licenses of retro games. You've got the success over the last 2-3 years of Catalyst Gaming and some of the other gaming systems bringing things back. It does,
It's live, dude. You want to support the show? Go back it.
I would not recommend.
There's only one tier for Lawfully Chaotic. It's $1,000. Mail it to me directly, please.
Make sure you fill it out on a rubber check. Oh my God, we did it again.
I know. We're trying to cut down to 45 minutes. This seems like a natural way to wrap up, so we're gonna do that.
Like one of those giant
check. That's right, like Publishers Clearinghouse. I've always wanted to walk into a bank with one of those. Like, can I cash this?
Yeah, can I cash this?
You can't even get it through the glass of the.
Sorry, sir, but you see where it said void on the bottom. All right, Brian, where can we find you?
Well, first, let me thank. I want to thank 3 Miles as always. I want to thank Colin. Solid 15 minutes for Rand. You know what really burns my ass?
You know what grinds my gears?
Yeah. Thank you, Colin. And also, we got our first chat join in Instagram over here. Roll with Chris. Thank you for joining us. And that's it. Thank you very much. Hopefully you'll join us again.
And of course, you can find these on Spotify. You can find them over at Brian's Lawfully Chaotic Studios, as well as on his Twitch. We're trying to make it easier for things. We're trying to make it easier for everyone to find what we do and make it a little bit more focused. But if you just want to listen to us be fools and you don't care about the imagery, check us out over at Spotify.
But then you're going to miss this and this.
No, they're not missing shit.
That's a good point. You might want to just listen to
it. All right, where can we find you, Brian?
You can find me, well, as Jason said, you can find us on Lawfully Chaotic Studios on Instagram. Obviously still on Twitch. At Lawfully Chaotic Studios and YouTube at Lawfully Chaotic. You can it's on my been in my Amazon cart for years.
No.
You can find RPG and Company. So TTRPG Academy and RPG and Company are now both like permanent creative partners. You can find me on Instagram at RPG and Co. Still on Facebook. I've got a YouTube also, but there'll be cross promotion and whatnot. But the best place to find me is on Instagram. So hit me up, send me a DM. You got show topics you want to throw out there? We are all ears. You want to be on the show? Again, it'll only cost you $1,000. Make check made out to me. Otherwise,
that'd be funny if somebody nailed you a check that says,
"God," I'd be like, "Great, now."
Well, no, it's like you're You get a check and it says payable to me.
Yeah. Then all of a sudden I got to cover my ass for fraud, for wire fraud or something. So yeah. Anyway, Jason, what about you? Where can we find you?
You can head on over to my link tree if you want, TTRPG Academy link tree. Instagram TTRPG Academy, Twitch TTRPG Academy, and check out the About section. Jump into our Discord, and come teach, learn, and play some games. Have some fun.
Awesome, excellent.
TPK.
Tell the story.
Play a game.
And be kind. Thank you for joining us. Bye. Woohoo! That was a great episode, I thought.
Yeah, it went really well. We just got to give ourselves more time and just keep this. This is going to be a better format. It just is. It's 45 minutes. It's 15 in, 15 in. A little bit of an intro, outro. Keep it simple. It'll be easier to